Alright, here's my review of this Wild Badger chainsaw. So this is an electric chainsaw, it's 20 volt. I believe they have a 40 volt version as well, but this is the one they sent me. So 20 volt, you know, you think of that, that's about like your power tools that you've got, you know, your impacts, your drills, your saw, your hand saws, everything else are 20 volts. So that's the kind of power you can expect from this saw. Here's the scrunch that comes with it, and that's literally all you need to tighten the bar nut and adjust the chain tension as well. Here's the bar that it comes with. It's a nice little chainsaw bar, 12 inches. This thing is very light. It's 6 pounds altogether with the bar and everything on it. There's the chain brake. It works well. It's very light. This saw is good for particular applications. So here I am just kind of putting it together. You've got to hold that button in before you can pull the throttle, and it's kind of like a safety feature for it. The cap that I'm removing here is not a fuel tank because it's an electric saw, so that's for oil. And I really like that because some of the other electric chainsaws I had, the small ones, they didn't have a place to even put oil on them. You just had to put oil on the bar, which I thought was kind of goofy really. But so that's how easy it is to take the bar nut off. Of course, you've just got one holding it on. And then here's your tensioner. I'm about to show that now. So that one scrunch tool, that's all you need to tension it and to remove the bar. That's literally the only tool you need for this saw. So here's the chain that it comes with. This thing cuts pretty good when it's sharp, honestly. It actually does really good. I'll kind of get into that more later. Right now, I'm just kind of showing me putting the saw together on my tailgate here. So it's pretty easy to put together. It has an instruction manual with it, but I don't think I even use that at all because it's pretty straightforward. There's the tensioner screw there, and that adjusts the tensioner itself. That's the only tool you need, as I said. It's very easy. I really like how easy that is. I like the tensioner screw to be right there rather than on the front face of the saw. It's a lot easier to access to me. It doesn't even make sense to me to have them on the front of the saw. I've had saws with them like that. My Johnson Red is like that, and I don't like that. Now, something they asked me to do, they sent me a message and asked me to compare this to my gas chainsaw. Well, you put my Johnson Red against this saw here, there's no comparison. The Johnson Red wins easily, hands down, in every way. The only difference, the only thing I would say this has in terms of beating the Johnson Red would be the lightweight. I like that and how quiet it is. So that's what I'm going to get into later, just tell you what I believe that this saw is really good for. As far as a firewood saw, this is not, this to me is not it. Now, if you had multiple batteries with it, maybe it would be more of a firewood saw, but this is more of a trimming saw, a woodworking saw, and even felling small tree saw. You know, I felled a decent sized cherry tree with it here later on in the video, but once I started bucking the tree, I'll kind of get into that later and show you the results of that. Very light, as you can see. I'm holding it there with one hand. It's 6 pounds. It comes with a battery and a charger. It only comes with one battery. If you were interested in getting this saw, I would recommend to buy maybe a couple more batteries. So far, I've really enjoyed this little saw. There's definitely perks to having something like this. You can use this inside of a garage, inside of an enclosed space. It's very quiet. It doesn't give off fumes. It's very light. So there's many applications of where this saw would beat a gas saw, you know, in certain applications. And then there's other applications, like as far as bucking wood goes, to where this saw, it doesn't compare to you know, a gas chainsaw of the same size. It's just not going to compare to it. And so I'm going to be honest with that in this review, and later on I'll kind of show you, or tell you and show you a little bit more about it. But there's the bar cover, and now here soon we'll go ahead and top it off with oil. Here is what I do, and then we'll go ahead and put it to use in different applications. As I said, I'm really liking it. I've used it for some woodworking in my home and in my shed, and it's been really handy for that, actually. See how this little thing does here. So it's a 20 volt Badger is what it is, and we'll see how long the battery holds up too, because it's not fully charged. It's about 3/4 of the way. 3 or 4 bars are illuminated. So go ahead and take this little bar cover off, set that to the side, and then to use this, you press in this little button and then you pull like that. And I've got it full of bar oil and everything. I've got the tension set to where I want it. I really like how the tensioner has the screw right here. I don't like it as much myself when they're out here. They're harder to get to when they're out here. I like the tensioner screw right here myself a lot better. this was one hand fairly easy. Cuts right through that. This is a hardwood, this is cherry. So we cleared that out good. Okay, so I'm gonna go up a little bit on this tree for my face cut to where it's not leaning as much. But whenever I use this saw for just branches and smaller stuff, you know, the battery held up pretty well. But once I got into this bigger cherry tree here, the drain on the battery was significant. So this saw, in my opinion, is not what you want for this type of application, for felling trees of this size or bigger, or even bucking. So this is cherry. See there? And I'll do my back cut, and it'll naturally fall the way that it's going. That little thing's paying for itself already. So, and I like options. I like having the options of electric or gas. I've always used gas. It's more power, but they've come a long ways with electric, and I'm always willing to try them out when they ask me if I want to. So this is Badger. I've done some more. Taranzi was another one. Those little one-handed saws, they're handy, but that thing you can hold with one hand easy. And I actually like that one better because it's got a place to put bar oil. I never could hardly figure it out on the, like those little one-handed. I think they just had little bottles you were supposed to just kind of spray it with it or kind of drop it on every now and then. I don't really like that. I like having, you know, the oil in there. So far I like that a lot. That's something my mom could use, my wife could use, Carter can use. It's actually going to be his saw probably. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead now, and I don't know where the battery is. I'm about to check that and I'll show you, and then I'm going to try to harvest this entire cherry tree with that little saw. How'd it feel? I like it. Okay, still on 3. So that's what it was on when I got it. It wasn't fully charged. So I'm curious, you know, to see what this thing would do on a full battery, but we're going to take it where it was and see if I can get at least this whole tree with it. And so this is a 12-inch bar here, and you can see, let's see, so that tree is about 10 inches. 10 inches wide, as you see there, I'm guessing, right around it, because that's a 12-inch bar. See, it cut that thing great too. It felt it just fine. This is hardwood, this is cherry. Let's see what it'll do to it. So this is what I was curious about, how it would do on a tree around this big, you know, because it's smaller than the bar length. You know, it's around 2 inches shorter than the bar, 10 inches, but this puts a significant drain on the battery. If you had a couple more batteries, you could harvest this whole tree, but is it practical to me? No. I was able to fell this tree here, clean around it. The battery was on 3/4 full, right around 3/4 full, 3 out of 4 bars. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've skipped past this a little bit because there's some wire in there, and I'm on my 6th one, but my battery is already down from 3 to 1. So if you had a couple batteries, you could fell this tree, clear around it. Now on a full charge, it would last even longer. But something I've noticed is since I've got into bucking this wood here, which is hardwood, this is cherry, it's wet stuff. The battery's been going down a lot quicker. Within the last 2 minutes, it went down a full bar. So this is definitely not really suited for bucking bigger wood. It will do it. It will definitely get it done. And if you had, say 2 or 3 batteries, you could let the other ones charge while you're doing it. But the battery is going down dramatically while I do this. This to me is a really good place where this saw shines, you know, when you're doing woodworking or something like that. I was able to actually make a whole bench using that saw, a place to sharpen my bigger chainsaws at. So it's very good for this, and you can use it inside as well. You know, if you've got a woodworking project inside, you can use this saw inside because it doesn't give off any fumes. It's very quiet compared to a gas saw. So that to me is where it shines. And also with smaller stuff, like here's some wood. Every now and then I'll get wood from other people and the wood is too long, but I'll go ahead and split it, you know. And so what I can do is use that little saw for the pieces that are split and they're a little long. It's very handy for cutting them down to size, because most people that I deliver to want about 16 to 18 inches. That right there is around 20, and you see that little saw made short work of that. Here is some oak. This is much harder wood. That last piece was poplar, and as you can see, it goes right through this oak as well. And this is hard seasoned oak right here, white oak. So it's a good little saw. I honestly really like it. It just isn't made for bucking, really. It's not a firewood saw in my opinion. It's more of a trimming saw and a woodworking saw. Could you use it for firewood? Yes, you could use it to do smaller trees. I believe with smaller trees, probably 6 inches in diameter and smaller, it would do great. And for limbing and stuff like that. They also have a 40-volt version of this saw, and I believe it would be much better for firewood. So with all of that, the conclusion that I come to personally with this saw is it's definitely worth having. You know, I have 20-volt power tools. I've got impacts, drills, skill saws, things of that nature. To me, this is another great tool to add to that arsenal. It's handy in places where those tools aren't so handy. You know, it's a 20-volt tool, you know, so it's very light, it's very quiet, but it's a chainsaw. So I've done reviews of those before, the smaller one-handed one. I think they're very handy. I'm definitely not against gas. I love gas. I prefer gas. That being said, electric has came a long ways, and as far as this brand goes, Badger, to me so far, my experience with it has been good. There's applications where electric is very handy. When you're indoors and you don't want to give off fumes and you want to be quiet, even if you're outdoors at nighttime and you've got neighbors and you want to be quiet, this saw is really good for that. There's been many times where I've had jobs and I needed to cut something with a saw outside, but some of my bigger saws were a little bit overkill, you know. I didn't really need something that big and bulky to get the job done. So that's where something like this really shines at. If you're someone that's needing a saw for firewood, you know, whether you burn wood or sell wood, I would not recommend this saw. Perhaps a 40-volt version would be more qualified for that. I'd have to try that one to speak on it. But this is not a firewood saw in my opinion. Definitely not. The battery drains much too quick. And it's not just that the battery drains quick, it's that gas saws of the same size have much more power and cut much faster. I appreciate Badger very much for sending this to me to allow me to try it out, and it is something that I plan to use many times in the future. Be safe and God bless.